Hello, I'm Vortex, and in this video today I'm going to talk about personal experience. I guess it might be quite controversial in some respects, well not really, but I mean basically I'm going to talk about a subjective personal experience with taking magic mushrooms basically, because I thought that might be quite interesting. Quite recently is the first time I'd ever taken them, so I thought that would be sort of an interesting thing to talk about, obviously, because it's going to have a somewhat interesting effect on your mind and brain. So I think I'd just talk about my experience. So obviously I'll preface this by saying I'm not advocating that you try this. Everyone has a very individual subjective experience on it, I think. I'm not an expert on it. I know like a little bit about it, but going into it, so obviously bear that in mind. I'm not saying that you should try this. I'm not advocating for it being something that is for everybody. But yeah, I'm just going to talk in quite a linear sort of fashion about my experience, basically. Okay, so I think I took a pretty normal medium dose. I basically had it in tea. So I drank it in tea. There's two ways you usually do it. Either chew the dried mushrooms or you have it in tea like I did, which is a bit more pleasant. The taste can be a bit bizarre. To me it actually tasted like sort of chewing on mud. It's a bit like it tasted earthy basically. Okay, so I've got to talk a little bit about my background as well. So I have some experience with experimentation or taking psychoactive drugs before. Primarily smoking cannabis, really, to be honest, like weed. That's the main thing. I tried salvia a long time ago, and some other things, but that all related to the mushrooms. It's more like my background's more like weed and salvia and sort of like hallucinogens, psychoactive drugs. But obviously, mushrooms is a much more intense experience and very different. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So basically, actually, my experience was, I would describe it as nothing else but positive. I didn't have a bad trip. I had I wouldn't say it was overwhelmingly positive, but it was definitely on the positive side. I mean, I laughed a lot. I obviously did have some visual hallucination stuff. I didn't really have any hangover. It obviously took me a while to get to sleep. It took a bit longer to get to sleep, but I did eventually do that. It lasted for about, I think, 4 or 5 hours, with a certain peak when it sort of a little bit after it kicked in. You do lose time perception. So what are the effects that I found? The most noticeable thing is it alters your perception, which is pretty obvious. So we actually, one thing I'd say is I was with somebody who I trust a lot and who I get on with. I think it's very important for the experience. And yeah, that was good actually. So we basically watched, what we decided to do was watch the 1927 film Metropolis. It's a black and white science fiction film, basically, with Fritz Lang, German. Which actually turned out to be a very good idea, because it's very there's music in the background. There's no dialogue, which actually meant that it was a sort of canvas that I could paint my mind's thoughts onto. And it's a lot very visually stunning, even as for a film made in 1927. It was really interesting to have this sort of experience. So you know what? Actually, the first thing when the visuals started kicking in, like hallucinations and stuff, it mostly reminded me of Deep Mind, by Google. So with that, you've sort of got like these images start emerging out of other things. So if you focused on a certain image, then it would suddenly transform. So that was the first thing I noticed, that it was like Deep Mind. It wasn't so much like fully transformed, but it was, you could just subtly see some perceptual sort of disturbances, and things like in the corner of your eye would start shifting and morphing. Morphing's a good word to describe the experience. And then as it went on, it got obviously a bit more, everything got more, lights obviously became much more well, vibrant actually in a lot of ways. Patterns would emerge just naturally. One very strange thing which I noticed is that if I was to, I don't know, say for example I focused on something else, like visually, I'd come back to the point I was at before, like when I'm looking at the screen on Metropolis. But the scene would have and I've seen the film many times before, so I know what it looks like. But the scene would have have new information overlaid on top of it. One of the main things I got from it actually was this, obviously being able to see. I guess I'd call it seeing energy, or see almost like auras, I guess. Especially when interestingly enough, when the characters became very expressive, because in that film, there's obviously, it's like expressionist film, so there'd be moments where they'd become very expressive with their expressions. Whenever that happened, like when they opened their eyes really bright, I'd see this sort of flash come out of them with what I can only describe as sort of diagrams. But it was very subtle. It wasn't like really in your face, but I could see these sort of like sigil diagrams coming out of their faces, especially when they opened their eyes wide like that. All this sort of like stuff would pop out of their head. One thing that really stuck in my mind actually, there's a scene with Rotwang, who's the inventor in Metropolis, and he basically sort of it was funny, but it was one of the funniest parts of it actually. He basically did some sort of action, like physical movement like this, and then he basically got stuck in the screen, and then the screen got stuck in the wall, and that was really funny actually. I mean, to be honest, I didn't get any disturbing stuff. I got very, very, very slight aspects of that, but nothing bad. And I think basically, the main time when I got something that was a little bit slightly sinister was when I walked outside. I went to have a cigarette. It was a few hours into the experience, probably 2 or 3, and the clouds were quite gloomy and sort of like red, I guess. And I sort of started seeing patterns in the clouds which were emerging, and that was sort of on an edge of something that could have been quite sinister. But basically, I just sort of rolled with it. My entire philosophy for the thing was just to roll with the experience. The latter parts of the experience with my tripping bro, basically we just started talking loads of bollocks, essentially. So we just had lots of weird conversations. I'm just trying to remember all this so I can just remember it. So we basically, I started talking about, we were talking about Nietzsche for a bit and like philosophy. And I was saying that I want to give Nietzsche a hug. I wish he, if he was alive, I could go back to him and all this sort of thing. And then we were just back and forth. And then stream of consciousness became much more of a thing. So I started to, my stream of consciousness, verbalizing my stream of consciousness became much more of a thing. So I would, sort of just reel off all sorts of information. It would be quite loosely connected, but it wasn't exactly word salad. There was still a logic there. And it was mostly just humorous, like ramblings, really. It probably wouldn't make much sense in... but I don't think it was quite at the level of, like a schizophrenic word salad or anything. There was some connections there. And, the person I was with was laughing and finding it funny, so it wasn't just utter crap. Mirrors were strange. So I had a strange experience when I looked in a mirror. That was only one of the more negative things. Oh, so basically, after watching Metropolis for a while, I went to the toilet. This is quite funny. And I went to the toilet and I went for a piss basically, and I just started pissing myself. Not like physically, but laughing a lot, so much, and I felt like it was just like monkey. Well, I described it to my tripping partner as like. Basically like I was becoming a monkey, and I was just so proud of just whipping out my penis and doing a piss, which is stupid, like it was ridiculous really, but I just became really it almost felt like it was a god or something doing this piss. It doesn't make any sense, obviously, but and then when I looked in the mirror, my face looked very odd actually. I looked older than usual, and it almost looked like I had sort of makeup on or something on my eyes, and it was a bit disturbing actually to look at myself like that. I didn't really like it. That was one slight. Obviously it's my own insecurity coming out, but my own looks, my appearance, and everything. That's what it does. When you're on these substances, it's just whatever is inside your own head comes to the surface. But I guess you just have to learn to just roll with it. Whatever it's going to show you, it's going to show you, and just. I always, for the entire experience, I always had in mind that this is short term. This is not. and it was. I mean, I feel fine now. I'm just completely normal, no perceptual disturbances or anything. And yeah, I felt fine. Like literally just no difference in anything. So, in terms of, I mean, a lot of time people think about these things that you're going to get some sort of, I don't know, big message. I'm not exactly sure what the big message was from mine. I mean, probably there isn't really. I mean, I didn't take loads as well. Like I said, I had a pretty regular dosage, and no real big truths. It was more like funny, disorientating, but interesting experience. Especially the Metropolis bit. That was probably the highlight. And obviously that was when it first kicked in. Was watching the Metropolis film, and that was just really it was really fascinating in it, and it was basically sort of like watching a living painting coming to life and just seeing all these extra details that weren't there before in the film. And the film itself is just visually stunning as well, so it's just like adds another layer onto it, really. Probably stuff that's just going on in my head anyway, but just visualised. I think I pretty much described everything that I saw in the film, which was like really a highlight that I can remember anyway. What else? I think that's pretty much it, yeah. I mean, I had pretty much a positive experience. I wouldn't say there's any negatives to it. Some of the main things are like this perceptual things. I mean, towards the end of it, wore off in the last few hours. I still was like in a sort of like dreamlike state of mind, and the lights were very much more, kind of intense. But it did wear off easily enough. I got to sleep, I think, about 3 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, I mean, for my subjective experience, it was it's interesting to be honest. I wouldn't do it often, but I'd probably do it again. Like I said, I can't say that I had any negative thing from it. Obviously, I guess you have to be careful. I mean, I wasn't too worried because, like I said, I've got some experience in this sort of thing. But I do have a diagnosis of bipolar, so that was the only. If there was a slight worry, it was that that I'd teeter over some sort of edge. But it was actually fine, and to be honest, it was fun. A little disorientating, but fun disorientating, not the sort of like, sort of disorientating. So yeah, that was my, I guess, trip report up in Noir Vortex. What do you think of that? I mean, do you find that interesting? Do you find anything? Whatever. Leave some comments below if you have any. That's literally just my honest account of my first time trying Les Magiques Marchons. So yeah, all right, bye.